Well, hello all for a surprise pop-up video here on Friday, September the 4th. I went to see a movie that I have been anticipating for a while. I had to look it up. It was supposed to come out in 2018 is when this movie originally was supposed to come out. The New Mutants. I don't know, delays, this, that, and the other. It got pushed back. I don't know how many times for whatever reason. It might have been part of like Disney acquiring all the Marvel characters and the X-Men and all that kind of stuff. It's the last of the Fox X-Men movies. I'm not exactly sure where in the franchise it's supposed to sit exactly. If it has more to do with depending on who your Xavier is, Patrick Stewart or the other guy whose name I can't think of right now. But of course, over the franchise, they've kind of intertwined, and whatever, and blah, 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 blah. I guess the first, you either have, the Patrick Stewart X-Men, or you have the First Class, I guess, however you want to look at that. I'm not sure exactly where, like I said, this one is supposed to sit. And it takes some, not necessarily what I would call banner X-Men characters. Cannonball, I guess, has spent quite a bit of time with the X-Men, or did at least at one point. And I think Danny Moonstar, whose code name I couldn't even think of, and I just looked it up and I've already forgotten. But whatever. Magic. I knew Magic was going to be awesome. I love her. Colossus' sister, by the way. They don't get into any of that, but see, that's what I mean. There's also like the Deadpool, and I mean Colossus is in Deadpool, and so I don't know what ties in with what. I don't really know. That's kind of how the whole franchise has been, to be honest. A character I will mention later, because I'm not sure if I didn't know they were going to be there. Cecilia Reyes. Don't think we ain't going to talk about that in a minute. Okay? Movie? I'll get back to you. But yeah, it was actually... so, like, I knew of these characters. My cats are going to go crazy. Hold on. Minxie's getting high on a new toy, so she's ready to mingle. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the characters. I knew of them being in the Marvel Universe, like Wolfsbane and, Sunspot and all these. Cannonball was probably the one that I was the most familiar with. Like I said, I knew of Magic, and more like Danny Moonstar, and I thought maybe she was Karma, but that turned out to be a different character. What was her name? Now I have to look it up. Do they have it on here? I've got the Wikipedia up. In the cast. No, they probably didn't, because I mean they didn't really go into the whole, they mentioned the X-Men at some point, and but it's not really, they're not up to code level status yet anyway, so it doesn't necessarily matter. Mirage. I think her code name was Mirage. So yeah, I kind of remember the New Mutants being there and whatever. So I was kind of familiar with these characters being a part of, the Marvel Universe as a whole, but the X-Men experience, I guess, the X-Men experience, if you want to say that. So at least I was kind of, it was familiar-ish characters for me, at the very least. So I was kind of interested, since I kind of knew of the characters at the very least. Of course, I guess I know most of them, a lot of them, maybe, in the X-Men universe. Maybe not now, because I've been out of the comics. I haven't read anything since the House of M, so, I mean, X-Men fans would probably know how long ago that was. I don't really. I kind of stopped right about there. So it's been a while. I've been out of the comics, no Civil War stuff, none of the apocalypse thing with the Horsemen and different stuff, and I don't know. There's been a lot of big things since then. But dipped its toe into quite a few genres. Of course, we have, they have their superpowers, which they don't necessarily get much of a chance to show off, but I feel like a sequel would have remedied that. Which unfortunately, with the Disney merger and, well, not really a merger, it's basically Disney taking everything. It's mine, I'm Disney. So we're probably not going to get a sequel to it, unfortunately, I would say. And there's the teen, the teen kind of drama, CWE-ness to it, where, they're coming of age stories, I guess they usually call them. And I had heard that they were going to mix the superhero genre and the horror genre. And I get that really makes sense for the way, I guess. And see, I don't necessarily know because I don't know the characters as much, which is something else I'll get to later. I don't know if all of their powers were represented properly. I know there's at least one that wasn't. Necessarily. So I don't know exactly if what happened in the movie was, like legit what would have happened anyway. But it made sense for, the powers and kind of, that kind of bringing in the horror genre to it. And they leaned a lot heavier into that. I mean, I had heard that they were going to be like elements or whatever, but I mean, in between the, the teen drama kind of ishness of it. If you saw the remake a few years ago of Power Rangers and how they went really heavy into the teen drama, which was unfortunate. But I think the New Mutants is a step above that. It's what the Power Rangers should have been, because I mean we see them kind of using their powers a little bit here, a little bit there, whatever. So it elevated, there, and then there was the horrorness and kind of, I think it all fit together pretty well, I liked it for all the different little pieces, and I think it's unfortunate that we're not going to get any of the sequels that we could have gotten, because I would like to spend some more time with these characters and remedy the whole getting to see them on another level sort of thing. So yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was, I suppose. I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but maybe it'll come to me. So that's like the base sort of things, I guess, that I was going to say about it. So now I have to get into some things that may be a little bit more spoilery. So just know that I enjoyed the movie. I think it's actually one of my favorites from the X-Men franchise. Even if it's maybe not. X2 is like my favorite X-Men movie, because there's like action and suspense and some drama in there and whatever and ever. I think that for me, X2 out of all the films is the one that hit all the right beats, I suppose. But I enjoyed it. I think it was one of the stronger entrants into the film series, and unfortunately it's probably the end of it, so never gonna get to see any of these characters ever again, or if we do, they're going to be completely different and have nothing to do with this film. So now I have to get into things that are a little bit more spoilery, so just know that I enjoyed the movie, and thanks for stopping by if you don't want to get into any of this. So at this point, like, spoiler warning, they're about to come out of my mouth, so just letting you know. The character that I mentioned earlier that I didn't know was going to be in there, we got to see motherfucking Lockheed. Like, maybe in the way that you expect, but maybe not in the way that you expect, but maybe exactly the way you expect. You don't know. But yeah, Lockheed is in the film, which was kind of a surprise. I didn't know that they were going to include that, but I appreciate them putting that in there. And some of the, like I said, I wasn't familiar with the characters, so I don't necessarily know The backstories are exactly where these emotions were coming from. Like with Sam Cannonball, he when he first used his powers, he was like working in the mine because he was like supporting his family and whatever and blah 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 blah, and he ended up like blasting out of the mine because he got like claustrophobic and whatever and blah 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 blah. So I don't know if that's exactly how the character would be represented, or exactly in the comic book, if that was part of his character or not. And like Ilyana, um, I think they were alluding to the fact that she was like in like the child sex trafficking thing. I don't think they ever like blatantly state it, but there's enough pieces there, I feel like, that you can put together that, make it sound like that's what was happening with her. I don't think that happened in the comic book. I know she was, like I said, she was Colossus's sister. I know she kind of had a dark path all of her own, kind of dark phoenixy kind of thing, getting involved with Lucifer. I don't. It was something that I wasn't really, because I didn't really read New Mutants. I mean, I didn't really get into X-Men until the '90s X-Men series, so a lot of the stuff had kind of already happened. But I kind of know from just reading the lore and whatever, and hearing about other stories and whatever, that maybe I, it's like little tidbit pieces that are in my memory somewhere. So her character had like a darker arc, I feel like. So I don't necessarily know that the Ilyana in this movie, I don't feel like the one in the comic book was like bitchy, but I don't, there again, like I said, I didn't read New Mutants, so I don't necessarily know necessarily, maybe perhaps she was. I kind of remember her more as the little girl character, and then I knew she came back. She like spent time in the Inferno or whatever, and then she came back like fully grown, or whatever, or at least as a teenager, as she was presented in this movie. So I don't necessarily know that those backstories necessarily were exactly correct or on point. And now, like, there's one character, and you've earned like the angry nerd pose, like the amount of disrespect, the blatant character assassination of Miss Cecilia Reyes. She's one of my favorite, like, lesser known, less used. I know since she's kind of made some more appearances, but when she came into the X-Men, for one thing, she didn't want to use her powers. Talking about misrepresenting her powers, when she first came on the scene, she could only use her powers defensively, and it wasn't really like something she necessarily controlled. It would just be like if somebody went to like hit her or whatever, like the force field would come up and like block them. Or like, I seem to remember they explained it, like if she got shot, her force field would stop the bullet, but she would still feel the pain of like getting shot. So she was actually trying to hide among normal society, and she was a doctor. I mean, she cared about people. That's why she wanted to stay a doctor. But yeah, like with her powers, later she got to use them more offensively. Like with the Neo and taking the drug kick. She got trapped with some bad, these bad people, group of people called the Neo, and she had to take this drug kick to be able to survive. And then there was like a whole storyline with her kicking kick, basically. But that was at the point where she was able to like control her force field, and like I remember she created like spikes with it, which is badass. I mean, she's one of my favorite characters that that I feel never got enough screen time. It's kind of, I mean, Dazzler was with the X-Men more than I think Cecilia was, and as far as I know, she's never even chosen a code name. But I remember there was this scene from the comic book where like somebody stole some of her medical supplies. It was another character that I liked called Marrow at the time, who was kind of a bad person, but ended up, with the X-Men, kind of a, you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing, I think, if I remember correctly. But she stole, Marrow stole some of Cecilia's medical supplies. And I bet I could find that. I found that frame at one point, if my phone will behave itself. But so Cecilia is like chasing after Marrow, like, hey, give me back my medical supplies. And she goes down the stairs and she's on the landing and Beast happens to be there. And she swings around because, she's coming down the stairs. So she swings her arm, and because Beast is there and it's unexpected, her force field enacts and she like knocks him halfway across the room. Like, I just thought that just showed that there was so much potential with that character and her powers and what she could actually do. And it was one of those, whoops, maybe I should figure out how to spell. That would probably help me find it. It just showed that there was more to the character that they never actually used. She was retired pretty quickly. I think all three of those characters that came on the scene about that time. Because there was Marrow, there was Cecilia, and there was Maggot. Someone out there, their favorite character is Maggot. I don't know who that person is, but there it is. See, she walloped him because her her force field enacted as she was coming down the stairs and she swung around. So yeah. I mean, this is the spoilery part. You were warned. So she uses her force field, to like outwardly. I don't ever see, and it's like when she's getting scratched or whatever. Like her force field should have stopped that from happening, and it didn't. Now, I'm sure there's like a limit to her force field, like, I mean, okay, you get shot a couple times, but like if a boulder falls on you, I feel like, like that's maybe something her force field couldn't necessarily protect her from. I don't know, maybe. I don't know the limitations of her powers, so maybe they could have done that in there, like showed it a little bit, and then later on be like, okay, well, this is too much for her force field to handle, and, this is going to actually do her, like, physical damage, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But on top of that, like I said, she's a good character. And there's enough beats in the movie, because it went, I don't know if it went through rewrites, I don't know if it went through reshoots, I don't know. There's enough beats in the film where it seems like, because she has her, what does she call him? She has her, basically she has a boss that she's answering to. And it almost seems like she's starting to question what they're doing a few times. And because I thought maybe in the end she was going to turn around and, like, help the kids. And then they're like, no, fuck it, she's a villain. And I'm like, I don't feel like you understand. No. Because that's what I said about the character, is she was actually hiding the fact that she was a mutant so that she could continue to work as a doctor and save people's lives. Like, that's who she was as a character. And it's like, and even, I mean, she's spent some time with the X-Men, but she, as far as I know, she's always, like, went back to, I remember there was a storyline, after she first joined the X-Men, she actually tried to go back to her medical practice, and that's when she got, like, outed as a mutant, and so it was kind of like over at that point. But she's always, like, she went underground kind of thing, I think. I remember she popped up in NYX, I guess. I didn't see that part, and her character has came back a few times, I guess, and was like a main X-Men character a time or two. But yeah, she's always kind of went back to that medical, like, saving people hunting things, the family business. No, that's something else. Um, so yeah, and that's what I just kept thinking. I'm just like, maybe originally they intended to go that route with the movie, or at some point or go that route with the character, I guess, where she was going to help them in the end. And I mean, even I would have been upset if they had killed the character off. Um, but I mean, if she got like a hero's death, like, I mean, she would be dead, but at least she would still be a hero. It's just like that's one of my, and I was so excited when I read the cast. I can't remember what it was I was looking up, but I saw that Cecilia Reyes was going to be in the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, that's awesome! Like, I love that character. I'm glad she's getting some screen time, and now I kind of wish she wasn't in the movie at all. Like, I just wish she wasn't there. It was some other nameless doctor. I guess Cecilia was supposed to be an X3, but well, that got all fucked up at the time. So I'm just putting it out there. I just want everyone to know the Cecilia Reyes that's in this movie is not Cecilia Reyes. I don't know who it is. I don't know where they came from, but it ain't her. It's the one thing I'm just mad at the movie about. But like I said, they did put stuff in there, and there's like, she's given this directive, and I thought, well, maybe this will be like her step too far or whatever, where she's like, I'm not going to do this, and then the movie went ahead and had her do it, and it's like, but she did say something in there. Like, I try to give credit where credit is due. She did say something in there about, there was this story about having to put down a rabid animal and blah, 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 how that makes a doctor feel helpless and powerless and whatever and blah, 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 blah. So, like, they tried to give the shades of good with Cecilia, but there was a much better way to go about it that I would have appreciated much more. But anyway... Other than that, as I said before, I did enjoy the movie. I wish there was going to be further movies. I guess there was plans for further movies. I was just looking it up here on Wikipedia. The character I mentioned earlier, Karma, who isn't Mirage, who isn't Danny, was going to be included in, like, Warlock, which, if I remember, he was kind of like a bio-organic... basically, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, the Guardians of the Galaxy have, like, their tree, like, I don't know. He was some kind of alien. I don't know. I don't really know. I know of the character Warlock. I can picture him in my mind. But yeah, I don't actually know what he's made up of or anything. So they had plans, and they were going to kind of stick with the horror genre as well. So, unfortunately, we're not probably going to get those. So, I mean, I guess it depends on how good the movie does, if Disney decides to carry it forward. I mean, this movie is a couple years old, so now, I mean, these people were supposed to be teens in this film, so it's like, if they decide to do a second one, now it's a couple years later, maybe they'll, look older, and they can, like, go with that story or whatever. Like, oh, here's these characters a few years later, or just... completely overlook that and just be like, hey, it's the next day or whatever, like, they have 20-year-olds playing teenagers all the time anyway, so what does it matter? But unfortunately, like I said, I would like to see a continuation, but that is highly unlikely at this point. So like, probably 101%, or at least 99.9999% that we're not going to get a sequel to this. So, and I personally find that unfortunate. I would like to see, I mean, maybe if the Marvel, I mean, they've been talking about bringing the X-Men into the MCU, but I think the introduction would be the X-Men. Like, it's not, I mean, I guess if the New Mutants does well enough in the theater, I mean, maybe they'll be like, hey, we can make some money off of this and, like, push them forward first. But I feel like if the MCU is going to go with the X-Men, they're going to give you the X-Men, I would think. But anyway, that's just kind of, I mean, I enjoyed it, like I said, for for all the different kind of styles that it was, all at the same time. And I mean, even though I would like to see a little bit more of, you know, the superpowers, of course, you know, that's why, kind of why I came. But I mean, you know, like I said, I think further sequels would have remedied that problem. And like I said, I feel like they still did a better job of it than the Power Rangers did. So Rita Repulsa ended up being the best thing about that movie for me. Even though I originally hated, I'm like, why are they making her look so different? I don't know, it was just weird. And then I was like, oh my god, I love her. And like, she's the reason I watched the movie now. But that's that. You know what I think, and you know what I do, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know if there's anything coming up before Vacay Day next week, but Vacay Day is next week. So if you decide to join me for that, I'll see ya. And as always, I'll still see you for what I see ya.